Horse feeds and supplements developed by Kentucky Equine Research are research tested and race proven. For over 30 years, top trainers and veterinarians have relied on science, technology, and products from Kentucky Equine Research to fuel top performance from the breeding shed to the sales ring and the track. Look for KER products and learn more at KER.com. Kentucky Equine Research, world leaders in equine nutrition.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Travers Day edition of Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm your host, Dan Ullman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Saturday's DRF race of the day, the Grade 1 Run Happy Travers, the Midsummer Derby featuring Belmont Stakes winner Essential Quality. DRF Handicappers Mike Beer, David Aragona, and I will take a look at not only the Travers, but two other major Grade 1 races on the Saturday Saratoga card. The Personal Ensign, a strong matchup. Latruska against Swiss Skydiver, and a wide open edition of the Grade 1 Sword Dancer on turf. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Picks segment, presented by Kentucky Equine Research, focuses on a 2-year-old race at the Spa, the opener on the card. Plus we have Marcus Hirsch's weekend game plan and best bets, so we're all in line. Let's break out of the gate. We begin out of the gate with the DRF Saturday Race of the Day. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1, $1.25 million Run Happy Travers. 1.25 miles at Saratoga, carded as race number 12 for 3-year-olds. Download free Formulator Pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Access them and handicap along with us. And remember, head on over to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Expanded stakes previews of all the graded races across the country this weekend. We talk about each horse in great detail. Essential Quality is the story of this race. No doubt about it. 4-5 on our colleague David Aragona's morning line. 7-8 in his career. He won the local prep, the Jim Dandy. The only blemish on the Belmont Stakes winner's record came in the Kentucky Derby, and he was only beaten a length. He is the horse to beat in this race, and we're all going to try to beat him.
Well, this Grade 1 Travers goes right through the morning line favorite, Essential Quality, number 2. I think we're all going to sort of take small shots against this horse on Saturday. I don't think David or Dan would argue that he's not Way the horse to beat. I certainly won't argue that either. He simply is Way the horse to beat at a short price. I do want to take some kind of shot against this horse. I thought it came down to, for alternatives, the best alternatives, I thought it came down to one of two horses, perhaps the number 4 Dynamic One, or the horse that I'm going to go to, the 7 King Fury. This is a horse who I was interested in taking a shot within the Kentucky Derby based off of this race, and we'll show you his 3-year-old debut right now. This is the Lexington back at Keeneland earlier this year. It's a sloppy track. It's a fast pace. I just like the way that King Fury won this race. A horse who was, I thought, better than he looked as a 2-year-old. Took a huge step forward here, confirmed that improvement with a really good effort in the Ohio Derby after this, and that was after he was forced to miss the Derby. Most recent start on turf was just simply a prep race to get him here. He obviously has to take a step forward to beat the favorite in here, but I felt like of all the other horses in this race, to me, he's the one who has the most potential to take a big step forward in here, which he will have to do. I'm going to try to beat Essential Quality with King Fury. I know Dan and David have some other ideas. Let's see who they like.
Essential Quality is Way the horse to beat in this Travers, but he's also going to be a very short price because he's gained this air of invincibility coming into this race, and that's what will happen when horses have career records that are 7-8 lifetime, with his one loss coming in the Kentucky Derby. But while he does nothing but win races, he does tend to keep it close at the end, and we saw that last time in the Jim Dandy, where he was just doing what he had to do to get up to win by a half length, was idling a bit once he made the lead after getting that wide trip into the stretch, and he allowed Keep Me in Mind, who's an inferior horse, to get within a half length of him at the end. And horses that do tend to keep it close in these races, sometimes if little things go wrong, they end up coming out on the wrong ends of these close decisions. So I didn't want to take Essential Quality at what's going to be a very short price in this high quality Travers field. So I'm going to the horse that I think is the best alternative, and that's the number 1 Midnight Bourbon. And the thing that I like most about this horse is that he has tactical speed, and he's likely to be forwardly placed in this race. We saw him get that kind kind of trip two back in the Preakness, and we'll take a look at the stretch run of that race when he was dueling for the lead through some pretty quick fractions, which set it up for the winner of this race, Rombauer, who just got a perfect setup to come from off the pace. But I thought Midnight Bourbon ran on valiantly to be second in this race, well ahead of the Kentucky Derby winner, Medina Spirit. And coming out of that race, Midnight Bourbon ran in the Haskell last time. While things didn't go right in the stretch and he clipped heels and lost the rider, he was on his way before that trouble to only losing that race by about 2 lengths to some really nice horses like Hot Rod Charlie and Mandaloon, both of whom I think would be real threats to Essential Quality in this race. So Midnight Bourbon, I think he's going to get the right trip. I would imagine Ricardo Santana is going to be aggressive from this rail draw. Speed has been really good in these dirt routes at Saratoga throughout the meet, so I think he's got a chance to wire this field and upset Essential Quality in the Travers.
No one started off Travers Week any hotter than Chad Brown. I believe you won 5 at the Spa on Wednesday, and I'm hoping you can keep that momentum going into the big race itself. I'll take Chad's Travers runner, the number 5, Miles D. Let's take a look at his prep for the race. The restricted curl in his first start around 2 turns, only his 3rd lifetime start. He had a trouble-free trip. He raced in mid-pack. He split horses without any sort of traffic issues turning for home. He makes a brief lead, and the horse that grabbed his cover on the turn, Dynamic One, a more experienced runner, is able to run him down in the lane. I liked Miles D's determination, and I love his upside potential. I am projecting improvement in only his 4th lifetime start. Perhaps we've seen the best already from horses like Essential Quality and Midnight Bourbon and Keep Me in Mind and Mask Parade. I'm not sure we've seen Miles D's best race yet. His buyers are improving with every start already, and I'm projecting another forward move. Pedigree, no problem for 1.25 miles. I wouldn't think. He's by curling out of a Bernardini mare. Chad's on fire, and you're getting a price, double digits on the morning line, for the number 5, Miles D, who I think can upset the horse to beat, Essential Quality, in the Travers. The Sword Dancer, a very strong race at 1.5 miles on the turf, and a pretty wide open race as well, is up next. Let's take a peek at the field for the Grade 1 $750,000 Sword Dancer. We're going 1.5 miles on the inner turf, and remember, there are expanded stakes previews on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We take a look at every graded stakes race across the country in great detail, and there's a little bit of something for every handicapper in this year's edition of the Sword Dancer. There's the brilliant early speed of Tribhuvan. There's the defending champion, Channel Maker. You've got a horse trying turf for the first time, Moretti. There's a multiple group winner from Europe coming in for the potent team of Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. That's the number 6, Japan. And you've got the Saratoga lover, Cross Border, who has already won 6 times in upstate New York. I'm very curious to see who both David and Mike like in a wide open edition of the Sword Dancer.
I've become a big fan of the number 1 Tribhuvan. I just love horses like this that use really enterprising front-running tactics in their races, especially going these marathon distances, and are able to hold on late. And since they've changed up Tribhuvan's running style and gelded him, which they did at the end of last year, and brought him back for his 5-year-old season, he's just been a completely different horse. He's run extremely well in all 3 appearances this year, particularly 2 back when he was second to division leader Domestic Spending after setting a fast pace in the Manhattan, and also last time when he won the United Nations, a Grade 1 going around the 3 turns at Monmouth. Let's take a look at the stress drive of that race, and I like that Tribhuvan proved in this spot that he could handle a marathon distance going that same 3-turn configuration that he's going to face in this spot, the Sword Dancer. And while he does have to stretch out an extra furlong to get the 1.5 mile distance here, he certainly wasn't stopping in this replay in the United Nations. He went quickly enough on the front end for the first 2 calls before he backed it up a little bit and got a breather, but he sprinted home nicely, and I'm not that worried about him getting some extra distance. And frankly, I'm just not thrilled with the other familiar options in this race, horses like Gufo, Cross Border. I just think they're a cut below Grade 1 quality going these marathon distances. And Tribhuvan's UN, that's a race that horses have come back out of already to run very well, so I think that was a legitimate performance. And personally, I think the biggest threat to Tribhuvan is going to be the foreign shipper Japan, but I did put the Chad Brown trained number 1 Tribhuvan on top.
Well, I get where David's going in this race with that speed horse down on the rail. I sort of felt like this race was going to set up a lot like Bowling Green did last time with Tribhuvan, who just got absolutely loose in the UN last time, having to deal with Channel Maker in here. I felt like the pace could be solid, as it was in the Grade 2 Bowling Green last time up here, and that played into the hands of Cross Border, who won that race. And I'm going to go right back to Cross Border in this race. It just sort of feels like he's the kind of horse, 6 for 7 at Saratoga in his career. He's the kind of horse who it feels like if he's ever going to get his grade 1, he's going to get it up here. This may be the right spot for him to do it, where he can just sit a similar trip to the one he did in the Bowling Green last time. And listen, again, that pace was solid. He was never far away from it. He kept those horses in range, easily powered past into the stretch, and opened up a clear lead in there to win. I thought pretty convincing. I thought that was a really good effort for this horse. I have no problem with him, trying to get the 1.5 miles again. I know he hasn't won over this distance yet, but I'm not worried about distance with him. I just feel like this could be the right time for him to pick up that grade 1 right back here with a similar kind of trip than he got last time, and he's not going to be the favorite. I will take Cross Border in the Sword Dancer.
I'll be using both of David and Mike's top pick in any sort of multiple race wagers going into the Travers. I prefer Tribuvant slightly more than Cross Border. I don't really have a powerful opinion in this race, however, so I'm going to take the complete unknown, and that is the number 5, Moretti. Perhaps Todd Pletcher's simply running this race because this is the last opportunity to run Moretti a distance of ground. He truly wants to go 1.5 miles or even longer. This is his turf debut, a tough spot in which to make a turf debut, especially for a horse that might not have a ton of turf pedigree on the bottom of his female family. I got a chance to watch his recent turf workout. It was in company with a Todd Pletcher trained runner named NYC, who's sort of a grade 3 type on the turf. And I wouldn't say that Moretti loved it, but he did keep up with NYC. The horse has tactical ability. It seems like these turf horses that we have in North America of the higher tier level, they beat each other. Maybe Moretti has found a decent spot to utilize his tactical speed. Plus, he's got to be a big price on the tote board. Leaning towards using Mike and David's top selections in multiple race wagers, mere stab with Moretti in the Sword Dancer. Let's go to Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment, presented by Kentucky Equine Research.
Saratoga has 3 races on its blockbuster Travers Stake Hard for 2-year-old maidens. Dan Ullman and I delved into one of those, the day's second race in Spa Babies, presented by Spendthrift Farm right here for DRFTV, but I couldn't resist taking a look at the other juveniles on the card. The first race of the day is for 2-year-olds going long on the turf, and of these horses, the one I immediately zeroed in on is Sweeping Giant, who seems to have a pedigree very well suited to this specific task for Todd Pletcher, who has a number of good youngsters going out on Saturday. Sweeping Giant is by the route sire Curlin, in turn a son of the versatile classic sire Smart Strike. Horses from this line are made to go long, and he did run long on debut on July 31st. You'll watch him here making up ground late with good courage under Joel Rosario, who keeps the mount on Saturday. It's a tough task for 2-year-olds to run long first time out, and this runner-up effort should have him well positioned with a solid fitness foundation to move forward going 2 turns on the turf again here. Now, he's out of Isabella Singh's, a 4-time graded stakes winner routing on the turf. She, in turn, have to Allura Michelle, who was a stakes winner on turf as a juvenile right here at Saratoga. So some precocity in that pedigree, stamina, class on the turf, a pedigree made for the task, and a debut that should move Sweeping Giant forward. Thanks for tuning in to Talk Pedigrees on this segment, presented by our friends at Kentucky Equine Research on our Travers Weekend edition of Out of the Gate.
Race 10 at the Spa on Travers Saturday is the Grade 1 Personal Ensign. Let's meet the field of fillies and mares getting set to go 1.125 miles. $600,000 is the purse. You have Latruska in here, the leader of the division. Not far behind is Swiss Skydiver, the winner of last year's Preakness and the winner of last year's Alabama at Saratoga. There is also a very strong supporting cast. So head on over to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel and check out those expanded stakes previews where we talk about each horse in great detail. Latruska, Swiss Skydiver, some potential upsetters. Let's see who the boys like on top.
This is actually a very solid field here in the Personal Ensign. The morning line favorite and the horse to beat, number 6, Latruska. Personally, I feel like when I watched Latruska's last 2 races, she's just had all the best of it. And those 2 wins, just absolutely getting loose on the lead, nobody really challenging her. Now, that may not matter when all is said and done, because Latruska is a horse who's shown in the past that she does not need to have things her own way on the early lead to run her best race against top competition. So if she has to go fast in this race, it's not necessarily going to affect her, but it should make things at least a little tougher on her. This is a good field. Swiss Skydiver, the horse that I like in here, First of all, is just way too good an option at the morning line odds. If those odds hold, I would just bet Swiss Skydiver all day over Latruska. Latruska may be the better horse. She certainly got the better of Swiss Skydiver in the Apple Blossom the last time they met. And I love the ride Swiss Skydiver got that in that spot. She's run several big races in the past. She has enough tactical speed to keep Latruska in range. I think she's going to make a bit tougher race of it this time in the Grade 1 personal Ensign, and I'm going to take Swiss Skydiver to turn the tables.
I know that she's going to be a pretty short price, but I'm not trying to beat Latruska in the personal Ensign. She has just been so good since they made the decision at the end of last year to take the blinkers off. Since that time, she's raced 6 times, and she is just a head shy of going undefeated through that 6-race stretch. And their last 3 races have really been special efforts. When she upset Monneweger on the Apple Blossom, 2 back when she won the Ogden Phipps in dominant fashion. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race. She comes into the lane with a clear lead and just is never lets anybody get close to her, and she's beating 2 pretty talented Brad Cox trainees in this race. Bonnie South, who's back in here, and She Dares the Devil, who has since gone on to granted stakes success out in California. And Latruska came right back out of this Ogden Phipps score to again win with ease in the Fleur de Lis over some overmatched competition. She is just firing on all cylinders right now, and without those blinkers on, she is much more tractable in her races. She can be rated on the front end and still finish through the stretch. I just think that she's a little better than these right now. I respect horses like Swiss Skydiver, even the California Shipper as time goes by, but I just think Latruska's in a different league at this point in time.
I'm more against Latruska than Swiss Skydiver in this year's edition of the Personal Ensign, but I'm going to try to beat them both with a couple of long shots. I definitely want to use Bonnie South, who didn't fire last time out at Delaware, but I know she's a better filly than that and is bound to be a good price. And I also want to highlight Todd Pletcher's runner, the number 9, Graceful Princess. Let's watch Graceful Princess's most recent race at Monmouth, the Grade 3 Molly Pitcher on the Haskell undercard. She broke from the far outside post in this race as well, was 4 wide on the first turn, 3 to 4 wide on the backstretch, 3 wide on the second turn, and is still able to ground down that field. Now, that field's certainly inferior to the one she's going to be facing here, but I just think this regally bred daughter of Tappet out of Horse of the Year Havre de Grace has come back this year in peak form. She does not like a wet track at all. Throw out her races 2 and 4 back. You're left with 2 good efforts this year. I think Graceful Princess is going to outrun her odds in the Personal Ensign. Marcus Hirsch has some game plan picks. I know he's going to take a peek at the H. Allen Jerkens at Saratoga, and then David will kick us off on our Best Bet segment.
Marcus Hirsch, correspondent and handicapper for Daily Racing Form, with weekend game plan for August 28th, 2021, Travers Day at Saratoga. Everything you could hope out of a Travers card, I would say. Incredible races, start to finish. The stakes are awesome. Latruska runs in a personal Ensign, a really nice personal Ensign. The Travers is interesting. Start to finish, I thought the card came up great. Really looking forward to it. I'm going to talk about 2 races there. We'll start with the H. Allen Jerkens over 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds. Billed reasonably so. It's a big matchup between Jackie's Warrior and Life is Good. Both excellent horses. Jackie's Warrior is one of my favorite horses, just from a personal, in the heart standpoint. Really love this colt. But I do think that this is a good time to try to take him on. He's even money on the morning line, which seems like a reasonable price. And he's coming off a fabulous race in the Amsterdam, going 6 furlongs, which I think is his best distance. I like this horse a lot in the Breeders' Cup Sprint at 3/4. He can do 7/8, but and I mean, he's obviously gone even farther than that with some success, but I do think that 6 furlongs is what he truly wants to do, even though, kind of counterintuitively, he is a very rateable, fast horse. Went incredibly fast in the Amsterdam, didn't finish fast, but he had already blown away his main rival during the clock, and there was no one to come catch him there. I do think that the sloppy track kind of enhanced the speed of the race and made him look even better than he was. Don't get me wrong, he's a fabulous horse. Also, he and Life is Good share similar forward running styles. Life is Good has never trailed a horse at any point of call in his 3 wins, including a sprint debut. He was the fastest horse of his generation before he went to the sidelines. And it's hard to see him not showing speed coming back fresh for a new trainer, too. Todd Pletcher takes over for Bob Baffert. These two, and Drain the Clock is going to want to try to show speed again from the rail. He just has no other way of running. I don't think that he'll be able to quite keep up, but I do think that Life is Good is going to challenge Jackie's Warrior during the middle stages. I did not like Life is Good to put Jackie's Warrior away and go on and win. And I think with all the scrumming on the front end, you've got a horse in Following C who's going to sit right behind and is capable of posting a mild upset, possibly at odds lower than his 5-to-1 morning line price. I think you can just comfortably draw a line through his Haskell. He was a beaten horse, but obviously lost a lot more ground from mid-stretch of the wire after he had to check out of the way of the incident between Hot Rod Charlie and Midnight Bourbon. His Belmont start, his first race for Pletcher, was fabulous. He did that so easily and went very fast. He's a horse that goes fast without looking like he's going fast. And his workout since the Haskell that I've seen, I saw he worked at least once with Dr. Post, who's a pretty strong older horse in his own right. And Following C gave Dr. Post maybe more than he wanted in that team workout. I think he's still got upside with just a minimal number of starts, going back to what I think is going to be his best trip, 7 furlongs at the right price with the right setup. An appealing play for me in the Jerkens Following C. Going to the Sword Dancer Invitational, always a very interesting race. I mean, maybe that's hyperbole. Maybe it's not always an interesting race. It's a race I always look forward to. And I think it came up nice this year. You got Japan coming from Ireland for Aidan O'Brien. This is not a top-level animal, although I do think he's been pointed to this race and prepped for it. Wouldn't shock me if he stepped up and ran very well. Don't like him. I do like the favorite, Tribuvan, who's 2-to-1 on the line. Speed in the rail. He's been a revelation this year since being gelded. Has done nothing wrong. Even his second in the Manhattan behind Domestic Spending, the best turf horse in North America, was an outstanding performance, I thought, especially considering the strong pace he set. I think the key to this race could be Moretti, who's going dirt to his first turf start. He's not a super fast horse, but he definitely is a front running type who is used to going to the lead in long distance dirt routes. I think that, everything points to him coming out of the gate, running and establishing an early position and forcing Tribuvan to be used a little bit more than might be ideal, especially since I think Gouffo is going to be making a big run at whoever's in front in this 1.5-mile contest. Gouffo is a mercurial sort. He's been a little disappointing to me this year. I expected him to emerge as a very, very top animal. But also, he's only run once at 1.5 miles on turf, that in the Grand Couturier Stakes, which was kind of a blinkers-on experiment at Belmont. As Christophe Clement seems to tap into this horse's vast talent pool that's not being fully expressed yet. He's fallen too far behind early in his races, which has left him with too much to do. That's what happened to him in the Manhattan. But I strongly feel that Gouffo has it in him to win top races going 1.5 miles. I think he's a natural 1.5 mile horse who's only getting his second start at the distance. And all the good things he's done prior to this have kind of been gravy. He's capable at 1.25 miles, and he nearly won. He nearly won in California going 1.1 miles right behind Domestic Spending there with a really powerful late run. I don't think that he's going to stick that close to the pace, but I have noticed in the workout videos I saw that he's run the turns pretty well recently. I'd love to see him moving up, gaining ground at the 3/8 pole, and just be in position to mow them down with a strong outside run in the Sword Dancer Invitational. Out west at Del Mar, the lone stakes on the card is the Pat O'Brien. It's a longer, somewhat redux of the Grade 1 Bing Crosby, although the winner of that race, Dr. Scheifel, is not running here. A couple others are, including CZ Rocket, who might be favored. There are some interesting new players in Ginobili and a Mark Glatt trained horse whose name escapes me right now. How Be It. Both those horses are running without Lasix. I think that no Lasix didn't help CZ Rocket at all. Brickyard Ride, who is formidable speed, didn't run his best last time without Lasix. Also, we've got established non-Lasix form with Flagstaff, who exceeded all my expectations in the spring. I didn't know he was capable of putting together that 3-race string that he did, and he clearly fits this spot. But I'm going to give 8 Rings a try here. Very competitive, just missed by a neck at 16-1 in the Bing Crosby. And I think what's really encouraging now is, for the first time since he was a 2-year-old, he's getting to run 2 races in a row without a break. This horse has had his ups and downs, but if you go back to his career debut, he ran a 94 Beyer over the Del Mar surface, his career best, which is pretty amazing coming in August of his 2-year-old season. It does make you think that he has room to improve on his Bing Crosby figure-wise. And from the look of his workouts subsequent to that race, he continues to train well. I think he's much more a 7/8 horse than 3/4, and he could slot into a very favorable trip at a very reasonable price. Is my play for weekend game plan in the Pat O'Brien Stakes.
My best bet comes on Saturday at Saratoga in the first stakes race they're going to run on that Travers card. It's race 4, the Grade 2 Ballston Spa, going a mile and a 16th for the fillies and mares. And Chad Brown has a 3-headed beast in here as he sends out a trio of runners, and Viadera and California Queen could vie for favoritism. Personally, though, I'm not thrilled with any of these Chad Brown runners. Viadera was kind of compromised by a slow pace last time, but I think it still remains to be seen whether she can get back to that stellar form we saw out of her at the end of last season. So I wanted to find an alternative, and I think that there's a good one in the number 1 High Opinion, who's likely to be a bit of a price in this race. This Tony Dutrow trainee showed some real promise at the end of her 3-year-old season when she was a good second in the Winter Memories at Aqueduct behind eventual Grade 1 winner Duopoly and finishing ahead of Vigilante's Way, both runners who came out of that race to do some really nice things. And since then, High Opinion, her connections have played around with some different distances. They tried to stretch her out to a mile and a quarter a couple of times. That didn't really work out. She's much better going shorter, and we saw that last time when she won a non-winners of one allowance race at Saratoga. Let's take a look at the stretch drive of that race. She's beating a pretty decent Chad Brown trainee in here, Love and Thunder, who was taking a good run through the stretch, but High Opinion is finishing fastest of all at the end, and I liked the way that she showed this effective burst of speed going the mile and the 16th distance, something that she wasn't able to do going a little bit longer. And with rider Luis Saez taking over this time, this is a race that doesn't feature a whole lot of speed, so I think that he could have High Opinion a little bit more forwardly placed than she was last time, and I think she might be able to get the jump on most of those Chad Brown runners, so I'm looking for High Opinion to upset the Ballston Spa at a bit of a price.
I'll make my Saturday best bet one of the non-graded stakes races on the Saratoga card, race number 6. It's an entry-level allowance race for turf sprinters. I like number 7, Colton's Command, in this race, assuming he stays around that 5-1 morning line price. This is a horse who cut back for the first time to sprint most recently up here earlier in the meet. He did not get a good trip that day. You can go back and watch that replay and formulate. I think it's pretty hard to miss. This horse stayed towards the inside all through the stretch, never got through traffic, and never got a clean run while finishing behind a couple of rivals who meet again in this spot. Going back, though, this horse's career debut, and we'll show you the replay of that right now. To me, at this point, it looked like Colton's Command could be a really nice horse. He won this career debut going a mile down at Gulfstream really impressively, moved up strongly on the turn, just absolutely buried this field through the stretch. His next 2 starts maybe weren't quite as good. You could say he disappointed in his next 2 starts when they came up to Belmont. Personally, I didn't think he ran that poorly either time. They were very tough spots. He caught yielding ground 2 starts back that he may not have cared for. They cut him back last time. He had all that trouble. Again, he's not the kind of horse that I would want if he gets bet down from his morning line, but I feel like if he gets a better trip this time, this is a horse we may still not have seen the best of. And I think if he gets a clean run this time, he might be able to turn the tables on those 2 horses he just finished behind, who are both contenders right back in this spot.
My best bet's at Saratoga as well. Race number 8 is the Grade 1 Forgo for some salty sprinters going 7/8 of a mile. My top pick is the number 7, Yaupan. Let's watch Yaupan's most recent race, his first start back after a poor effort in the Dubai Golden Shaheen. And I think Steve Asmussen found a great spot in this 4-horse light diffuse stakes at Pimlico. He was able to assert himself late. He popped a 101 Beyer speed figure. And this horse showed his affinity for Saratoga last year when wiring them in the Amsterdam on an easy lead. He might receive a similar pace scenario in the Forgo. I think he's going to be right in the thick of things turning into the stretch. I think this 4-year-old has a lot of upside, and Yaupan's a pretty exciting sprinter. 5-2 on the morning line in the Forgo. My best bet on Saturday, the 7 Yaupan in race 8 at Saratoga. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRFTV's offerings on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. And for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, follow us on Twitter at Daily Racing Form. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.